Hello, I'm Alexandra. I'm a full-time student, content creator, co-host of a book club, serial hobbyist, reader, dancer, working part-time, while also having a social life and staying close with my family and keeping my mental health in check. And how am I doing it? Clearly, I'm invincible. But actually, I'm not. For real, how do I manage all of the things that I do? The short answer is I don't. The long answer is that I do a lot of planning and I try my best. But here are concrete things that I do to make sure I'm able to balance every single thing. The first thing is to be realistic with your time, because there's some things that literally it's impossible. But if you're like, I don't even know how to start, here is how to start. The first thing that I do is that I plan everything and kind of do like an analysis of all of my commitments and the time it's going to take. I organize my life in a few ways, but one important thing about my schedule is that I'm really meticulous about my digital calendar. Personally, I've been using Notion calendar and also Fantastical and also sometimes Google Calendar, but all of those are synced with my Google account, so it doesn't really matter exactly like which app specifically that I'm using. But yeah, everything is in my Google Calendar. Okay, everything with an asterisk, because if I start putting in like morning routine and lunch and dinner and rest time, which I do think is helpful for some people, for me it gives me anxiety, because then I feel like, oh, I don't have like any buffer time between all of these events and all of these things that I want to do. My digital calendar is specifically for events and things that I need to do. Since a lot of things that I do are self-motivated, there's like not really a boss who is telling me, hey, you have to keep up with it. I keep myself accountable with weekly and monthly check-in. Usually around a month before, I'll plan out all these like content ideas or things that I want to do or things that I'm going to work toward, and then I'll break it down into every week, and then I'll break it down on what it would actually look like during that week. So specifically for content, all of that information is organized in Notion. I have a Notion calendar that's also integrated into Notion, and also the calendar app that helps me keep track of what exact like project that I want to do. Like, so let's say a video this week, the steps that are needed within the tiers of a video, as well as like other smaller projects, so like, oh, Instagram posts or TikTok posts or like any ideas that I have. It's all organized there on Notion and also integrated into my calendar. I use the same method for organizing my assignments. Everything is in Notion and integrated into the Notion calendar, and so when I look at my calendar, I can also see, okay, today I have this assignment due, or this week in a few days I have this assignment due, and I have this content thing that I want to work on and publish by this day. So every single morning or every single time I look at my calendar, I'm reminded, okay, these are some things that I'm working towards in the immediate time frame of today until next week. In terms of like organizing my Notion, in all honesty, I haven't really changed much of my setup since the last few Notion videos that I made. Like, even from the original Notion video that I made, I used most of the same templates. Like, for example, the school section is like the exact same as what it was in that template, and I just have been using it for the past 3 years because it works for me, and same goes for content. And those are the two main parts of my Notion that I use the most, just because that's what I need organizing the most. Some miscellaneous tasks like day-to-day things like drop off this return, or like buy oat milk or restock on matcha, I used to organize that onto Notion as well, but now I use my hobonichi, mostly because I like to write things down and have like a physical manifestation of things that I am working on. I feel like once I write it down, I'm able to remember it, and I don't want to have like everything in one place, even though I feel like it would be easier in theory, but for some reason it doesn't work as well for me. So for content and for school and for bigger projects like that, it's all digitally, just because it's easier to organize that way. And for more day-to-day things, I keep it in like a physical to-do list that I can just casually check off. The last app that I use to really tie this all up really ties into the concept of time blocking, which is blocking out tasks based on how long they would take. So before I started using this app in particular, I also tried time blocking in my calendar by just creating a calendar event and being like, work on homework from this time to this time. But for some reason, it didn't really work very well. And I think it's because I feel like a lot of pressure when I actually make it a calendar event. I tried for years and it just never worked. The main app that I have been using to keep track of all of this is Sunsama. I've been using Sunsama for the past year and it has really changed the game for me. The reason is that you put down the time it takes to do the task. Let's say filming a video takes an hour. I'll put that as an hour. Then also, let's say I need to watch a movie for class. That's gonna take 2 hours. Then let's say I need to do some readings for class. That's probably gonna take another hour. So I have a few main things in my to-do list today, and it's going to take a total of 4 hours. I have class for 2 hours from this time to this time. Sunsama is connected to my Google Calendar, and so I can put these tasks directly into my Google Calendar and it'll be adjusted accordingly based on like what is realistic in my day. The reason why I really enjoy this app is because I tend to be too ambitious with the amount of things I can do in one day. When I was a kid, I really was constantly frustrated at myself because I wasn't able to, publish a YouTube video in one day while also dancing ballet for 8 hours while also being a high schooler and doing all my assignments. Like, I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to do it all, and now I'm like, oh, it's because I literally only have 24 hours in a day and 10 of them are gone because I'm sleeping. And don't tell me to sleep less, because that's not the problem here. Sunsama has really helped me become a lot more realistic with tasks because I realized that things actually take time. And because I've been using this app for a year, I've also become really good at estimating how long a task is going to take, especially if it's something that I'm doing like repeatedly, like a reading for school or like working on content. That has been super helpful. That's probably what I use with my hobonichi planner every day to keep my life in order and to keep myself accountable. I think the main reason why Sunsama works for me is because I don't actually stick to the schedule that I make for myself, even for my tasks, but it really does help me be a lot more realistic with how I'm spending my time. So even if I'm not, filming my video first thing in the morning as I planned at 6 a.m., I do end up filming it later in the day, and same goes for my readings and everything else. As like a side note to time blocking, what has been essential for making sure that I'm actually using the time productively, I use the pomodoro method. Basically, the pomodoro method is when you work in time blocks, so either 25 minutes and then you have a break for 5 minutes, or you'll work for 50 minutes and then you'll have a break for 10 minutes. Because I know I have a break ahead of me, I feel more inclined to I just need to push through, which a lot of times is what I need. I just need that extra push to get through this assignment. Also, Pomodoro method is helpful for me because it frames it so I'm actually not studying or working for very long. I think the hardest part for me whenever I start working or work on a project, especially as a freelancer and a student, is starting. Once I actually start studying or reading or working on whatever it is that I'm working on, I will continue working on it for hours and I'll be fine. But starting is really challenging for me, and it's usually because I'm quite overwhelmed with the idea of the project itself. It feels like it's this big thing that I am really going to struggle with. But if I tell myself I just need to do it for 15 minutes or 20 minutes without thinking, and even if it's bad, it's fine, then I'll feel more inclined to start, and once I start, things will be fine and I have a break after. I realize that it's not sustainable for me to just expect myself to work for 3 hours straight because I'm not someone who functions like that. I definitely need breaks. I definitely don't work well in normal hours, which is why I always felt a little bit weird. But because I'm a student, because I'm a freelancer, I'm able to kind of make my own schedule and work when my energy levels are higher and then rest when my energy levels are lower. For example, I always want to take a nap at 2 p.m. and now I can do that, except when I have classes at 2 p.m. that becomes a problem. And then I drink coffee and then I'm over caffeinated. Speaking of energy levels, another tangent, I think it's really important to be conscious of your personal energy levels and to not place too many high expectations on yourself if your energy levels are low. I don't know if this is a good metaphor, but just like how we should eat foods that are in season, we should also be mindful of our bodies and our minds and our energies depending on the season. I remember I was listening to Emma Chamberlain's podcast, and in one of her episodes she was talking about how in the winter time she feels like lower energy just because there's not as much sunlight. And now that I live in New York and there are 4 seasons, I do feel this very much where like, wow, in the winter I definitely feel like my energy levels are much lower, my productivity levels are much lower. So I think it's important to take that into account if you have the flexibility to do so. And if you're planning for yourself, aside from like, you know, school obligations, scheduled work hours, then I feel like you should be able to do that for yourself too. So if you know that socializing drains you a lot, then maybe don't socialize as much in the winter. Not just because it's cold, but because like it takes a while for you to recover. We need to hibernate sometimes. My third tip is to regularly reset, rest, and have routines. Because I know I will go feral if I don't rest, I have to really prioritize rest. And it can be a tricky balance or slippery slope because let's say if your goal is to like work out more often, and if you rest for this week, then by the next week it'll be much harder to get back into the routine because you broke your routine. But sometimes if you're like really feeling unwell and you feel like you'll go for the sake of going and you won't get much out of it, then it's definitely more important to rest. So it really just depends on the situation. But yeah, the reason why I'm able to do everything that I do is because I really prioritize rest. I really prioritize my sleep, my routines, and resetting every month, every week. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to learn like what works best for your energy levels, and so it really depends. But I think that we really need to rest more as a society because I know I'm someone who is a Capricorn moon and sometimes like naturally am a workaholic, and so I need more of that. And I know that after I rest, I end up doing better work. However, if you know you're someone who rests too much, then definitely give yourself more push, keep yourself accountable, discipline yourself. You just have to do the thing. There's no secret to that. My final tip is to simply persist. It is not easy balancing everything. Sometimes I'm like, what if I just don't? Like, what if I become the main character of my year in rest and relaxation and I just disappear off the face of the earth and sleep for a year? That sounds really nice. Sometimes, but I know in my heart that I really thrive when I operate like this and I really grow a lot, and that's something that I value. So at the end of the day, I just have to persist even when it's hard, even when I'm tired, and even when I fail. Like, we have to keep doing it again and again and again. You just have to do it. Like, there's no secret to that. I hope this gives you more clarity as to how I am invincible and how you can be too. I really believe in you, and I know you'll be able to balance every single thing that you want to do and still have it all, but make sure to rest. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye!